We're going to begin with one of my old favorite songs, Sing Unto God, one of Debbie Friedman's first songs, and I thank Charles Treaster for bringing it to us. It's not in your Machzors.
But if you know it, please join in for all you old campers. God's
this experience is really all about. It's about finding a new song to sing to God, a new way to express our open hearts and our praise. Every morning we wake up and we are still breathing, and that is a miracle. And so we take a few moments to thank God for the miracle of our working bodies, the breath that God breathes into us, our strength. And we continue our service on page 5 with the singing of these prayers right into page 6. As many of you who have attended our Unplugged services in the past know, through our Rosh Hashanah experience, we're going to hear 3 stories in place of a rabbinic sermon. Hearing from members of our congregation has really been incredibly powerful and has helped us to create a congregation of compassion and understanding. This year, the theme of our speakers is courage. I had the privilege this past summer of visiting South Africa with my family. And when we were there, we stood in Nelson Mandela's prison cell. where he was imprisoned on Robben Island for 27 years. And then he went on, as you know, to become the leader of South Africa. Such an incredible story. And this is what Nelson Mandela says that he learned from his struggle about courage. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. What I love about Mandela's words is that they make courage accessible to all of us. He reminds us that to be human is to be afraid. All of us are afraid at times. And that vulnerability and fear is really what in some ways helps us to live full lives. Finding courage is not just the province of superheroes like Superman and Mrs. Incredible and even Nelson Mandela, but really almost every day presents us with risks and challenges, sometimes big and sometimes small. There are difficult conversations, asking for help, confronting a diagnosis, stepping up to the plate after a series of strikeouts, asking for forgiveness. Each of these moments exposes our vulnerability. If we turn away from these moments, then we sit on the sidelines of life. On the other hand, if we face these challenges, then we live wholeheartedly and with purpose. As sociologist Brené Brown says, daring greatly means showing up and letting ourselves be seen. So many thanks to our three speakers for showing up today and letting yourselves be seen. It takes a lot of courage. Karen Lubetsky, Warren Zinn, and Amy Turkel will be sharing their stories with us, and their bios are in your program, your Rosh Hashanah program. And once again, their messages are going to be woven into our shofar service, which is in 3 different parts of our service. And that's really done deliberately, because the shofar is meant to be our wake-up call. It's meant to stir us, to provoke us, to inspire us, to renew us. And that's what their words will do for us as well. And so our first speaker is Karen Lubetsky. Karen is an incredible athlete and coach. She ran in the Boston Marathon for the first time 2 years ago at the time of the bombing. And she's going to share thoughts with us about her experience and how she was able to return again last year and run once again. Also, I'm going to ask you, I know you're going to want to applaud, but please don't. You can. Karen.
From the heart. Shana Tova. On April 15th, 2013, when I crossed the finish line at the Boston Marathon, I felt nothing short of elation. And while what my family and I experienced in the hours after the bombs went off is a story for another day. But when Rabbi Pomerantz asked me if I would speak today about our experiences, I thought I wasn't sure how it really fit in to the whole Rosh Hashanah theme. And then I quickly realized that my family's journey back from Boston 2013 was a renewal of mind, of body, of spirit, and a reflection back on the past year and how it will make us better people. And that is exactly what Rosh Hashanah is about and what we're here to celebrate today. We returned from Boston a different and altered family. I will never forget the first day my children went back to school and my then 4-year-old turned to me and said, "Mommy, do you think there'll be bombs here today?" I realized at that moment that I had to break out of my own haze and start fighting for my boys. It was a difficult time that in some ways I will never forget, and in some ways I have no way of remembering. But I knew at that moment it was time to fight for my family. My children at the time were 4, 6, and 8, and experienced a lot of things in the hours after the bombs. And when we came back, I knew I had to find a way for them to be an active participant in their healing. So we decided to have a bake sale. We had a bake sale to raise money for One Fund Boston. And I thought this would just be a simple way for them to feel they were taking some action. I felt helpless as a parent. I felt helpless as a person, and we needed to take action. So we baked and baked and baked, and one cupcake and $1 at a time, we raised $1,300 for the One Fund Boston. And what was most important to me that day was that for the first time, my kids were running around the park. They were playing. They were talking about their experience, and they weren't clinging to my side. That was their first step towards renewal. That was their first step in healing. And while we made a lot of money, and everybody I knew came out to support us, when we were finished, we had more baked goods than we started with because everybody also came with baked goods. So in the days that had followed, and when we first returned to Miami, every time my boys heard a siren or saw a police officer, and admittedly, I had the same reaction, there was a fear. My heart would start to pound. I would see them shake. So I decided that we had all of these extra baked goods, and the first thing that we should do is take them to the police and fire stations and let my boys talk to the policemen and the firemen and let them see that policemen and firemen were not something to be feared, that they were there to protect us. So we went to the fire station, and one of my sons had been having a hard time. He was the only one who hadn't spoken at all about the events, and he wasn't sleeping, and it was understandably a rough time. We walked into the fire station, and a fireman walked over, and he bent down, and he said, "Wow, why are you bringing me cupcakes?" And all of a sudden, it was just a flood of words, and he opened, and he started talking. And the fireman went in the back and brought him a hat, and he gave him the hat, and my son slept for the first time that night wearing that hat. And as I think about Rosh Hashanah and reflecting on the past year, one of the most important things are just kind words from strangers, and something that, while my family and I saw the worst of humanity, we also saw the best on that day in Boston and in the weeks that followed. I realized then, with all of the kind words, I had an obligation not only to myself and to my family, but to all of those people who reached out to us, people who knew us well, people who had met us once, many people who never had, and just reached out with a kind word. And I needed all of them, some way I needed to show all of them that their words made a difference to us, that they helped us. In those first few weeks, I was so concentrated on my boys, and my husband and I really focused all of our energy on them. I didn't realize that I was just getting through the day. I was not able to go to a mall. I was not able to be in large crowds. My friends took me to a concert one night, and I had to leave. I had a panic attack. They started shooting off pyrotechnics, and I couldn't be there. But perhaps my breaking point was when I was out running, doing what I enjoy, doing what I need every day for my renewal, and a car backfired, and I had a panic attack. And that car backfiring was my first step towards renewal. I realized then and there that I had to go back to Boston. I had to go for all the people who reached out to my family. I had to go for my boys, and I had to go for me. It was a way for me to show the world that America was still the land of the free. I stood there that day on the corner, huddled up on the curb with my teammates crowded around me, trying to catch my breath, and I kept thinking to myself, how can this be in America? What can I do? And the answer was, I can go back. I can let them see that America will remain free. I can show my boys that I am not going to live in fear, and I won't let them live in fear. So as April approached, my husband and I made the decision that while it was very important for me to go back to Boston, it was still a little too early for my kids to return. And the anxiety of waiting at the finish line might be a little bit too much. So I returned to Boston alone. I had to go for my entire family. The trip to Boston was emotional, to say the least. I cried the entire flight there. And the night before the race, I lay in my hotel room and I watched a documentary about a man who had lost his legs during the bombings the year before. He wasn't a runner. He was simply your average American watching the race with friends. The Boston Athletic Association had offered him a coveted entry into the race as an incentive to recover, and he accepted. The next morning, as I made my way to the race site, I just began having conversations with strangers, people I never knew but was forever bonded to. And we all spoke about our experiences. We all cried. We all had this sense of reflection and renewal that Rosh Hashanah is about. And we came together and we helped each other. And we had never met, but we forever changed each other's lives. Just like so many of the kind words that came from so many people actually sitting in this room in those weeks after to my family, how they really lifted us and brought us the peace that we were searching for. I entered my race corral, and I was getting ready to start the race, and they were reading the names of the victims. And I started to cry. And there was a very young runner next to me, and she looked at me and she said, "Were you here last year?" And I said yes, and she said, "Me too." And complete strangers, we grabbed each other's hand, and we held on tight to each other as they played the national anthem. And the moment the gun went off, we gave each other one last squeeze and ran away. Someone I'll never forget, and someone whose name I'll never know. But we were in it together. As I started running, I never felt a stronger sense of fear, vulnerability, but at the same time, all the love and protection. I knew that everybody was there supporting me, and I knew that together we would make it through. There was 26.2 miles of signs that held symbols of freedom. Foreigners waving American flags, signs that read, "You're running for America. Thank you for running for my freedom." And as I approached mile 20 and started that last long uphill and my legs began to feel the distance, I saw that man that I had watched in the documentary the night before. He started the race hours before all the other runners, and he was plugging away on his new prosthetic legs one step at a time. And I just started bawling. I was crying, and our eyes met, and he looked me right in the eyes and he said, "We're Boston strong. Keep running." And I did. And as I approached the finish line, I looked down, and embedded into the ground on the cement were the words that read, "This is our finish line." And as I crossed that finish line, for me, for my boys, and for something so much bigger than all of us, I looked up and I saw a 100-foot banner that said, "Boston Stronger." And I cried a lot of tears in the last 18 months, but perhaps none more so than at that moment. I knew that I was giving my boys a renewed sense of security, to let them know that no matter what happens in life, you keep fighting, to let them know that I will do everything I can to show them the world is safe and to help them feel security, and to let the world know that we will not be kept down. Crossing that finish line didn't necessarily end our road to recovery, but it gave us that renewal of mind, of body, of spirit, and that reflection on the last year that I hope that this holiday brings to all of you. And I thank all of you for listening and for actually being another step in our road to recovery. Shana Tova.
Going to continue our service with the prayer, the Yotzer Or, a prayer of creation. And I just want to share with you all that this year, 5775, is known as a Shemitah year in our tradition. So what is a Shemitah year? In the Torah, we read that every 7th year, we are supposed to let the land rest. and we could talk for hours about what that means. But there are all kinds of creative interpretations for how we can incorporate the Shemitah year in our lives. In fact, even in the New York Times this morning, there's a discussion about some technology companies in Israel and how they're incorporating the Shemitah year. So we reflect on this wonderful earth and creation that God has given us, our responsibility toward creation, and helping creation renew itself. Yotzer, page 11. Thank you, Hannah Bass. Our second speaker this morning is Warren Zinn. He was a photojournalist in both Afghanistan and Iraq. Stephen Sotloff's murder just about a month ago drives home for us the very dangerous work that our journalists do in order to bring us stories. New York Times editorialist Nicholas Kristof said this about photojournalists. I want you to hear it, Warren. Kristof said, "My first rule of covering conflicts is never to accept a ride from photographers because when they hear gunfire, they rush toward it." Warren? Yeah.
It was March 2002 during one of the largest battles in Afghanistan, and as I laid face down in the dirt, I heard a strange sound I had never heard before, bullets buzzing by my ear. I could look over at the rocks and see them ricocheting off the rocks as dust kicked off the rocks, and the truth is, despite what Nicholas Kristof says, I was scared. Then a few minutes later, it got worse. The Taliban fighters were up on the mountains overlooking us, and they launched a mortar barrage. I could hear the whistle of the mortar a few feet overhead, and then it exploded nearby. And the truth is, I was scared. But as the battle raged on, I noticed that my body slowly began to adapt and become comfortable with the sounds and sights of war, and I began to set my fear aside and do my job, making pictures. A year later, I was in the Kuwaiti desert, the day before we were supposed to invade Iraq, and Saddam decided to launch some missiles into Iraq. Suddenly, a soldier came running out of the command tent screaming, "Gas, gas, gas!" Now, when that happens, that means there's a missile inbound. They expect it to hit nearby, and you have seconds to put on your gas mask and your chemical warfare suit. The soldiers around me were unfazed. They put on their mask, they put on their suit, much like most of us got dressed in the morning, with total calmness. Me, on the other hand, I was frozen. Frozen, literally frozen, could not move. I was terrified. I'm often asked by friends and family, how did you do it? How does a Jewish boy from Miami Beach have the courage to go to Afghanistan and go up in the battle in the mountains or ride in the back of a Bradley armored vehicle into Iraq? And the truth is, it's a simple answer. An answer I once heard from a mountain guide when he was asked, how do you scale the world's tallest peaks? Shockingly, he said, easy. I put one foot in front of the other, and then I repeat. See, I hate to be a myth buster, but there's nothing mythical or unachievable about courage. Courage is simply the ability to set fear aside and put one foot in front of the other as you head towards your goal. Or do it for 26.2 miles, as Karen said. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people who achieve levels of courage or heroism that few, if any of us, could. There are people who risk their lives and reputations knowing that the outcome is most certainly not in their favor, but they do it anyways. They are soldiers who know that by saving someone's life, they most certainly will die, but they do it anyways. They are freedom riders who know that by riding the buses, they will be injured or killed, but they rode the buses anyway. They are righteous Gentiles who know that by saving a Jew's life, they or their family would most certainly be killed, and they did it anyway. These people are truly special, and we could only hope to aspire to their level of courageousness. So how then do we, the average person, act courageously? From my experience covering the military, I believe that the single largest contributing factor to acting courageously is conditioning. Being exposed to fear time and time again so that your body adapts and can overcome fear. See, the first time I was first time I wasn't shot. The first time I was shot at, I was terrified. The second time, still terrified, though a little less so. By the 4th, 6th, 10th, or 20th time, it became almost routine. And I was able to continue along with my work just as if I were on the streets of Miami Beach. When soldiers are not in Afghanistan or Iraq, they're in the United States doing live fire training exercises. They continuously train in environments designed to simulate war. That way, when they're actually in war, they're able to function almost normally. They can set their fear aside and continue on towards their goal one step at a time. Now, what makes courage hard for the rest of us who are not soldiers or firemen or police officers is that we don't have that training every single day of our lives. Very few of us have a job where on-the-job training includes being conditioned to deal with fear. But our opportunities to act courageously occur daily. Courage need not come in the form of jumping on a grenade to save a friend's life. It can come in smaller, more manageable forms, like speaking up and defending Israel when a group of coworkers are criticizing Israel, or standing up for a schoolmate who's being bullied, even if it means your classmates may make fun of you, or walking across a bar or a shul to go say hello to a girl who catches your eye. Or overcoming one of the largest fears in America, public speaking. By speaking to a group, even a small group, about something that you're passionate about. I believe that these are the live training exercises that the soldiers get that we could all get too. And that by doing these exercises, you can condition your body to handle fear so that when that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity comes to act courageously on a large scale, your body's conditioned to ignore the fears and simply put one foot in front of the other and achieve your goal. Lashana Tova, may it be a year where we all step outside our comfort zones and challenge ourselves to do something we're afraid of, and in the process, commit a courageous act, even if it's a small one. Thank you.
Rosh Hashanah yikatevun uvyom Zom Kippur yechatemun beRosh Hashanah yikatevun uvyom Zom Kippur Kama yavrum vekama yibareun mi yeh umi yamut mi vekitzo umi lo vekitzo beRosh Hashanah yikatevun uvyom Zom Kippur yechatemun beRosh Hashanah yikatevun uvyom Zom Kippur yechatemun mi v'ha'esh umi v'hamayim mi v'cheref umi v'haya mi v'rav umi v'tzama
לנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש לדור ודור נגיד גודלך לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחה אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד ושבחה אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה לדור ודור נגיד גודלך לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הקדוש.
שים שלום טובה וברכה שים שלום שים שלום
שים שלום טובה וברכה שים שלום שים שלום
שים שלום טובה וברכה שים שלום שים שלום
שים שלום
טובה
וברכה
שים
שים שלום שים שלום שים שלום טובה וברכה שים שלום שים שלום שים שלום טובה וברכה שים שלום שים שלום.
Our final speaker this morning is Amy Turkel. Amy works for the American Civil Liberties Union, and her story is deeply personal. It's about her coming out to her family and creating a non-traditional family of her own. Amy?
Morning. I think I'm okay because I just had a wise young girl help me blow my butterflies out. So I think I'm going to make it through, so thank you for that. Thank you. When I was 36, I fell in love, deeply in love, for the very first time. And it took me by surprise. I was the epitome of looking for love in all the wrong places. And it wasn't accidental. It's hard to find what you're not looking for, and I was petrified of finding love. But to keep my fear hidden, I did all the things people looking for love usually do. I went out a lot, dated guys, talked the talk, danced the dance. And I was a workaholic. Working all the time kept me too busy to be present with my fear. Then one day, my friend Michelle and I were talking about a challenge I was having at work. A major client refused to pay a big bill for work that I had already delivered. Michelle offered to introduce me to an attorney she grew up with who she thought might help me. I was desperate for a solution, and a week later, the three of us met for lunch. And right there, under the big tree at Nemo, I fell in love. In an instant. There was no way to have anticipated it and no way to control it. My heart imploded. As I tried to contain my composure and explain my legal challenge, I felt like there was a pinball game going on inside of me, with the ball darting between a bumper called Cloud 9 and another one called Hell. I should have been elated, but I was overcome with fear. I was afraid that if everyone knew I had fallen in love with a woman, if they knew that I was gay, that I would disappoint them, and that they would think less of me. I was afraid that they loved the person I wanted them to see, not the person I really am. So, for the first year Lynn and I dated, I told only one person, an amazing friend who showed me unlimited compassion. And as she listened to me, I got to hear myself. And I started to realize that what was really going on was that I felt shame, that I could not accept who I am, that being gay, that falling in love with a woman, well, that's just not how I wanted to see myself. That's not the person I wanted to be. As my friend gave me a safe place to be vulnerable without judgment, she actually gave me a space to see myself and to start to feel compassion for my own story. But still I was scared, and the fear kept me from telling anyone else. One interesting thing about fear I found, when you want something badly enough, you can get through that fear. It's not that the fear goes away, it's that somehow you find within you the courage to act even though you are full of fear. And that's what happened. One night on the way home from Passover dinner with my family, Lynn told me that she would no longer see me if I didn't tell my parents, that she did not want to continue to live the lie. She gave me a deadline, and though I used up every last minute, every single last minute, the threat of losing Lynn was what I needed to act. I wrote a long letter to my parents. I called deep into my courage, and I hand-delivered the letter to my parents. When I did, I asked my mom and dad if they would please read the letter, but not talk to me about it until the next day. And then I darted off. By the time I drove the 8 minutes home, my mom had left a message on my phone. I can't remember exactly what she told me, but there was a lot of, "Your father and I love you very much. We are here for you. We are proud of you. And whatever it is that makes you happy, well, that's what we want for you." I felt relieved to hear the message, as you can imagine. I had shown myself to my mom and dad, and they showed me love and compassion. And from then on, we were connected in a way that we had never been connected before. Well, then I told my brothers, and I told some friends, who told some friends, and then I was out. And with very, very few exceptions, people showed up. And I got beyond my fear of being rejected for who I am. I pushed past working so hard to be who I thought I should be, and I started to ease into being me. I learned that when I covered up my truth, I hid myself, and not just the part I was ashamed of, but all of me. But when I shared my truth, when I found the courage to be vulnerable, as soon as I let my friends and my family in, they pulled me closer, and for that, I am eternally grateful. Hey, the truth is, we all feel imperfect, and sometimes not good enough at something. And when someone gets the courage to share with us, to show us their vulnerability, if we can show compassion and accept without judgment, we will make a deep connection. And when we do, I believe we will start to repair the part of the world that we see and touch. And as our kind and wholehearted daughter, Dylan Sophia, starts to blaze her own path through the world, I can think of no better way to start the new year. Tikkun Olam.
I am so humbled by these beautiful stories we've heard this morning. Thank you.
I'm 15 for a moment, caught in between 10 and 20, and I'm just dreaming, counting the ways to where you are. 15, there's still time for you, time to buy and time to lose. 15, there's never a wish better than this, when you've only got 100 years to live. I'm 33 for a moment, I'm still a woman, but you see I'm a they, a kid on the way, a family on my mind. I'm 45 for a moment, the sea is high and I'm heading into a crisis, chasing the years of my life. 15, there's still time for you, time to buy and time to lose yourself within a morning star. 15, I'm alright with you. 15, there's never a wish better than this, when you only got 100 years to live. Half time goes by, another blink of an eye. 67 is gone, the sun is getting high, we're moving on. I'm 99 for a moment, I'm dying for just another moment, and I'm just dreaming, counting the ways to where you are. 15, there's still time for you. 22, I feel her too. 33, you're on your way. Every day's a new day. Oh, 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 oh. 15, there's still time for you, time to buy and time to
to take just a few moments to reflect on our Torah reading before we chant Torah. This year, we are once again returning to Temple Beth Shalom's tradition of reading the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, that iconic story where Abraham is asked by God to sacrifice his son Isaac. So traditionally, it's read on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. But here at Beth Shalom and in most Reformed synagogues, it's read on the first day. So this story challenges us on so many levels. First, we want to understand why God would ask Abraham to do such a thing. How could Abraham comply with God's request? Where was Sarah? Did Isaac know what was going on? And why do we keep having to read this same story over and over again? You know, there's so many questions, but one of the greatest things about being a Jew is being allowed to ask questions, even when we don't get satisfying answers. We hope that as we read this year after year, that we'll gain some sense of understanding and appreciation for the story. So one of the questions I want to reflect on with our congregation is why our tradition chose this story. Of all the stories we could read on Rosh Hashanah, why this story? And this is not a rhetorical question. So if you think you have an idea of why this story is selected. The story of the binding of Isaac on Rosh Hashanah. What's its lesson for us today? Have courage. Speak up. I can't hear because of the rain, I'm sorry. Say it again. Trust in God. Okay, so Abraham demonstrates this unshakable faith in God, which honestly most of us don't have. I think most of us really struggle with our beliefs and with understanding God. And so this story comes around, I think, to inspire us by Abraham's faith. What else? Kill your kids. Okay. There is not one parent in this room who has not considered bringing your child to the mountaintop. You know, when we read the story, we're meant to see ourselves in the text. We're meant to identify with Abraham, with Isaac, with God, with Sarah. So that's another reason why we read it. Why else? Yeah. Thank you. Limor said the challenge, that Abraham has challenges, we all have challenges, and that is so true. Every one of us endures trials, tests, maybe not every day, but certainly every year we have some kind of trial, an illness, a loss, whether it's of a job or a loved one, a breakup. So this is meant to help us to understand that we can make it through the challenges. Now, when Abraham was about to sacrifice Isaac, what did he do instead? Yes. He sacrificed the ram. Thank you. He looked up. He looked up from his own wretched situation. He looked up and he was redeemed. He saw the ram caught in the thicket, and he understood that that was the sacrifice he should make. And that's where our shofar comes from that ram. It is a horn of redemption. We remind ourselves that if we have courage, if we stand strong, if we believe, that we will look up and find hope. And so that's what we remind ourselves of year after year. And I just want to conclude by sharing with you this question that the Kotzker Rebbe, a Hasidic Rebbe, asked his disciples. He asked them, what was the most difficult part of the binding of Isaac for Abraham? So many difficult moments. But the Kotzker Rebbe says the most difficult part was coming down the mountain. You know, if you read the story carefully, you see that Abraham comes down alone. He had to live with the consequence of his choices. We all have to live with the consequences of the choices we make. Abraham endured one test, and then he had another. And that's the way life
And now
works.
I just want to say there are so many people who contribute to making this experience so extraordinary for all of us. I want to thank our magnificent singers, each and every one of you, our musicians, our Torah chanters, our shofar blowers, our cantor for coordinating all the music. It's really exquisite, and you uplifted all of us. So thank you so much. We're going to.
And thank you, Rabbi Pomerantz.
Yeah, where are you?
I'm right here.
You've got to get up every morning with a smile on your face and show the world all the love in your heart. Then people gonna treat you better. You're gonna find, yes you will, that you're beautiful as you feel. But some days I don't feel beautiful, and I keep the words I'm feeling deep inside. You can be amazing, you can turn a phrase into a weapon or a drug. You can be the outcast or be the backlash of somebody else's love. Or you can start speaking up. Nothing's gonna hurt you the way the words do when they settle neath your skin. Kept on the inside and no sunlight, sometimes a shadow wins. But I wonder what would happen if you say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. What you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. Just want to see you. I just want to see you be beautiful. I want to see you be brave. Just want to see you. I just want to see you be beautiful. I want to see you be brave. You've got to get up every morning with a smile on your face and show the world all the love in your heart. Say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. What you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. What you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. What you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. What you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave. Just want to see you. I just want to see you be beautiful.